All right, I want to talk about consumerism in the Linux space, specifically like the YouTube desktop user space. For a while now, every time I browse through YouTube Linux videos, it's almost entirely distro hopping, distro reviews, however you can review a Linux distro objectively, and people changing up what software they're using very, very frequently. And I'm labeling this Linux consumerism, even though like no money is changing hands, because it's in the same spirit as monetary consumerism, physical consumerism. When you when you distro hop and you've gone through 10 distros in 10 weeks, this is spiritually no different than you buying 10 Labubus or whatever consumerist trinket is popular today. And I'm going to say that this is bad for you. It's bad for you mentally, it's bad for you spiritually, and it's bad for your progression in Linux in particular and life in general. Because you're keeping yourself at level 1 of this hobby or skill, or maybe you want to be a sysadmin profession, by constantly switching around your base and never trying to progress past anything. Right? Now, as far as like distro hopping, which is the most common thing I see, I think you can really get away with whatever distro you have installed already, unless it's something that's hyper niche and not made for general purpose computing. Otherwise, really you have two options, two realistic options, like the best options. You're either going to put in Arch Linux or you're going to do Debian stable. If you use one of those two distributions, you can do anything that any other Linux distribution can do. Both of them can run the same software. It's a little bit more of a pain on Debian to run newer software, but you can do it, you can learn. And it's a little bit more painful to do maintenance on an Arch system than on a Debian stable system, but it's not impossible, you can learn. And this is going to get you actual skills, right? Like, you don't want to spend all of your time learning Linux just installing different distributions, just installing different shells, right? Install Debian. That's what I always do. Just install Debian, and then start picking things to learn, and just try to build up your skills and move on to something. Learn how to use the command line. Get comfortable with the package manager. You should know all the basic commands for aptitude, right? You should be able to install a package, remove a package. You should know about auto remove, how to upgrade your system, how to do a version bump, right? These are all basic things. You can learn them in an afternoon. You can probably learn them in 20 minutes, all right? It's going to make you better. You can learn Pac-Man. Pac-Man's not too hard. Yeah, it has a lot of different switches and not as intuitively named as the APT package manager. But you can still do it. Then you might want to get into something like systemd, right? I know there's a lot of hatred on systemd, and it's probably deserved at some point, but it's a standard in modern Linux distributions. And if you learn even the basics of systemd, you learn about timers and services, how to write a service file, you can go pretty far in that. And just knowing that is going to give you a lot of crossover skills that you can use. And that's a lot better than changing your shell for the third time this month, right? Which, that leads me to the discussion of shells. There's a big, I don't want to say a holy war between Bash and ZSH, but those tend to be the big ones. But just pick one. You should probably just pick Bash because it's installed by default on every modern Linux operating system, right? Just pick Bash, learn basics, learn how to write some shell scripts in Bash. That's way more useful to you to just learn how to do some basic Bash scripting than trying to install ZSH and get a bunch of plugins with Oh My Zesh. That's way more useful than installing a niche shell like Elvish, right? Not because Bash is inherently better, but because there's a lot of transfer of skills around. And then once you learn one shell to a reasonable degree, you now have all these different skills that transfer over to other shells. Like let's say you do learn Bash, you take a couple months, learn to be a decent Bash programmer. Now it's kind of trivial for you to move to ZSH. Fairly trivial for you to move to Conch or MKSH or whatever else you want with that. Do that. And don't be a consumer with your software either. You see a lot of these tech channels, and they'll pick one program and they'll use it for 2 weeks or a month, and they'll tell you it's the best thing ever, and then they'll switch to another one, and they'll be like, friendship with Cadian Live is over, FFmpeg is best friend now, right? Don't do that either. Stop being a consumer in the tech world as well as in the physical world, and it's going to be good for you, right? I think that's really all I have to say on that. Don't be a consumer in general. Just skill up, level up.